my perspective has changed a lot. Especially, I had to put a lot of effort into my life to be where I'm at right now, right? So it was adversity, as you mentioned, but then it was many struggles along the way, deployment.
Howdy, and ahoy again. I'm working on my check. And welcome to the Allied Airpower Podcast. I am your human host, callsign Houdini, and this is our second episode of our two-parter series on NATO days in Ostrava, Czech Republic. This episode is a very special one, especially for me, because it's great to talk about events and policy and thought leadership and whatnot, which all really matters to Airpower. But it is exceptionally meaningful when we have the opportunity on the show to tell the stories of frontline airmen across the Alliance. In today's episode, we do just that. Meet U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant Honza Cafourek, a U.S. Air Force airman. Join me in following his journey from escaping the Iron Curtain as a child to finding his way to becoming an American citizen, then finally becoming a proud airman in the U.S. Air Force. It's a story of grit, determination, and commitment, values universally valued by us all. Let's get to know Honza. Today's special guest is U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant Jan Honza Cafourek, a U.S. Air Force logistics leader whose journey runs from the outskirts of Brno, Czech Republic, to the headquarters of U.S. Air Forces in Europe, Air Forces Africa. He currently serves at Headquarters USAFE as the command's expert in individual protective equipment and as the command's mechanized material handling systems program manager, ensuring that airmen across the theater have the protection, readiness systems, and sustainment they need for real-world operations. His service has taken him worldwide, from Exercise Cope North in Guam to a 6-month deployment in the Middle East for Operation Inherent Resolve, where he's supported flight line logistics in extreme heat and sandstorms to keep aircraft, generators, and vehicles mission ready. Honza's story is captivating, one of grit and service, and one of a journey. And we're going to tell it here on the Allied Airpower Podcast. Born and raised in the Czech Republic, today he serves proudly in uniform for the U.S. Air Force, a dedicated American citizen, finding himself all these years later back in the Czech Republic for his work. What a story do we have to tell. Welcome to the show, Honza.
Thank you for having me.
Now, as we always do for this podcast, we have to do the disclaimer. The views expressed in the Allied Airpower Podcast are those of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of NATO, NATO Allied Air Command, or any national government. Any external hyperlinks or resources that we share on this podcast do not constitute endorsement. Now let's get to the cool stuff. All right, Honza, tell us just a little bit about your life. Where do you come from?
All right, so again, my name's Honza. I'm originally from the Czech Republic, Brno. I was born there back in 86. Then, I was born during a socialism or communism. So then our family later on escaped the Soviet Union or Soviet era. We went to Austria. So then, I kind of grew up in Austria. And then after the fall of the Iron Curtain, then we moved back to then Czech Republic, because again, I was born in Czechoslovakia, I should say.
Right.
But then, so we moved back, and over there, we're just living my life like any other regular guy, playing soldiers and playing pirates, whatever. And then I think that's where I found my interest in like law enforcement, military. So ever since I was a child, I was meant to be a police officer, military, whatever. Anyways, going to school, I wasn't the brightest student, but I was doing all right, I guess. Then, there was an incident which really triggered me to be more involved in law enforcement and like military. And then with that, I just, was going through school, and then eventually I found my way to, a heart of a American lady, and she somehow became pregnant. You know how it works. And then I wanted to be, with my son, well, my child back then. I don't know what gender it's going to be. And then I made my way to the United States to be able to be with him, because she wanted to give birth in the United States. So I moved there. I was barely 19, didn't speak any English at all. I had just, basic like trade school, we call it a VNG list. It was nothing really special. I again, I had no idea what I'm gonna be doing with my life. Made it to the United States. Over there, I then started working as a painter's helper. So I was, just an errand boy, delivering or running around with paint and brushes and kind of helping out. Uh, I was trying to learn English, but it was difficult because I was mainly in a Spanish speaking environment over there. But then I dedicated my time and I went to back in California, the Honza College in Cupertino. There was an amazing teacher. She was really focusing on helping us, all of us immigrants over there. So that was my first true introduction to like English. Although I did English back at school in Czech, you can't really compare it to actual maybe English speaker. So that helped me a lot. With that, then I got myself a better job. I was learning English so I can apply elsewhere. Then I was able to apply at a semiconductor company where I started again on the bottom as a help desk runner, meaning IT guys would set up a computer. I would take a computer or keyboard, deliver it to a cubicle. Basically, again, errand boy. That was my beginning over there in the United States.
An amazing story. I mean, it's like you were living the American dream and you didn't even know you were asleep, you just went through it. And I mean, that's powerful. I've been looking forward to this interview because I don't think I've told you this in past correspondence. And I didn't tell our mutual friend across the street, but my wife is of Czech descent and she's very proud of her Czech. She's from Iowa and she loves, everything to do to Czech. But I think I've one-upped her because I've met a real Czech from the Czech Republic. Now, tell us, you were talking about earlier. So you were born when it was Czechoslovak. How was it like that when you were a child to live over there?
Right. So again, we escaped. So when my sibling was born, then the family just packed our stuff and they kind of moved with us to Austria. So did I really live under the Iron Curtain? Not really. We escaped. Right. But then, living in refugee camp in Austria, then, going to Austrian elementary school and, preschool and all that, it was kind of, so my first language was kind of mixed German and Czech. But then again, we were living in Austria. My first introduction to when I can remember is the post-communist Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic. Once we returned, I've seen how it looked. And then, your stories from your parents and grandparents, how they tell you, what happened to your family, how everything was taken away from you and, couldn't really go to school because, one of your family members was against the system. So nobody could go to school. So I was like, I have these vivid memories of things which happened to my parents, and, family members and fellow citizens over there. I was like, man, this is terrible. So that's actually one of the reasons also I later on, decided to join, or there was the guide which wanted me to kind of go and be part of something bigger and, better than myself and serve somewhere else or be a soldier.
Yeah.
I've seen what such a regime can do, man. I was like, I want. So.
Yeah. And on that point, I mean, because it's evident just by your story. I mean, that requires grit to go through your life experiences and everybody's life experience. When making the decision to move to the United States for your son, right? That must have been, you're leaving your whole life, don't even know English. And by the way, your English is amazing now. So tell me your teacher so I can maybe go to that teacher to learn to improve my English. But I mean, it's amazing, right? What was the decision like when you decided to move to the United States for your son to start a whole new life?
Okay, let's be honest. You're 19. Are you really?
Yeah, right. You're really thinking about it. Yeah.
I don't want to be offensive, but 18, 19, you are just a stupid child. I was a stupid kid. I wasn't thinking about it. I was just, okay, I'm just going to do it. It's cool. I'll do it. I moved, right? Was I thinking about, what the future holds? I wasn't. I was like, okay, I'm living in the moment. So I was doing it, right? Like that. Right. Again, who thinks of things like,
yeah,
what that's do in 5, 10 years over there? I didn't think about it. I had no idea what I'm going to be doing over there. I was like, well, damn, I'm gonna come over there and just, try my luck. And
Yeah.
that's what I did. Didn't think about anything. I was just naturally going. I knew I want to do something, but did I know what? Again, I wasn't the best student ever. I sucked at school, to be asked. My teacher, when she learned about me being in the States, and then she actually met me a few years later, well, few decades later. She's like, "What? You have a bachelor degree now? You? Like, yeah, you barely spoke English. You were barely passing." I'm like, "Yeah, well."
Oh, there's hope in the world.
It's like, yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Bachelor working on a master. And she's like, "How?" But
So I guess on that, and probably this is all in hindsight and retrospect, but what did you learn about responsibility and risk those first months that you were in the US and then afterwards, you know?
well, you're in different place, position, different culture, and I had to like adapt, and I had to be really quick on or think quickly on my feet because I don't want to just be making what was it back then $8 an hour. Right? Hell, I was like, no, I'm not making that. I want to do more. So then that was my driver, and for my kid, I was like, I don't want to be yet another unsuccessful immigrant. I didn't want to come back back home to Czech Republic and be like, well, I failed and I'm here and I'm hoping, no. I was like, no. I had a dream ahead of me. I was like, I'm gonna be better. And I always saw myself as a police officer. I was like, I'm gonna be a cop later on. I'm going to be a police officer. And I think that was my biggest driver in life. I was like, I want to do better for myself and my family so I can be a cop one day in the United States because who can say in Czech, oh, I made it, right? So that was my driver all along.
Well, so far you're making it. I mean, look at you. Yeah, it's an amazing career right now in the US Air Force. And, like I just think, and this is just my frame of reference, like here at NATO, for example, we have all these allies. Well, no, let me back up there. I spent some time in Spain one time, and I was practicing my Spanish, and I remember every day at the end, I was just cognitively exhausted because Spanish is not my primary language. So it gave me perspective in thinking, wow, I have so much respect for everyone in this building, except for maybe the British. No, I love them, but it's their native language. Everyone here has to switch, and they must be exhausted at the end of the day, And I remember my mom, her Spanish is her primary language, and I remember her telling me one time, I wish you could hear me speak in Spanish fluently, and you would see how smart I am. And that's always stuck with me. And I guess my question for you is, those first couple of years, taking ESL classes at night, learning English, how was that like?
You know how many times I felt like I'm just a donkey. I'm like, man, I can't spit it out. I want to say something and I can't. My commander back from Tinker loves this story. I go to Safeway, Safeway's the grocery store in the States. You go to Safeway. After I came to the States, I love cookies. I was like, oh man, I want to get me a cookie. Well, I need a cookie dough. If I go to Safeway, mind you, I barely speak in English. I'm still going to the Honza College learning ESL, right? Learning English. I go there and there's this kid, sort of a little bit younger than me, like one of them summer workers. And I'm like, hey, Pookie? He's like, yeah, dude, right here. I was like, no, Pookie? No, mate. You're like, man, what you saying? I was like down trying so hard with it. I was like, cookie dough. I had no idea how to say the cookie dough. I was like, I knew it's like, a paste, which I need to, I was like, cookie? He was like, man, you tripping. I was like, right here is cookie. You can get cookies right here. It's full place cookies. Just get it over here. I was like, I gave up. And I went back home and I went back to my, my son's mother. I was like, I can't. I was miserable because I could not get myself a little simple cookie dough because I could not talk to him and I had no idea what I'm looking for, where to look for it. Again, it was one of them things where I was like, man, this sucks. And I was struggling. But then after, things like this want to make you go and you just like be like, hey, I come back and I'll be able to ask for that stupid cookie dough and I'll get that stupid cookie dough and I'll make my cookies, But yeah, my commander always follows the story. He's like, man, so cookie? He was like, no, I couldn't figure out how to say cookie dough. So beginning sucked. It sucked. It really sucked. And it was raining. Like you feel embarrassed. You feel like people looking at you like you're stupid, like I'm just like, I'm trying, but if you're learning a new language,
Yeah.
you want to spit it out, it doesn't work. And frankly, learning English at, school in Czech is different than actually being in the States, right? You learn the proper English, like the hello, how are you, and stuff like that. And it's like, that nobody speaks like that, right?
Yeah.
I'm up to you, it's like, what's going on, right?
Yeah.
But it says, hello, what's up? Yeah, yeah. But so it kind of, it helped you. But again, I wasn't the best student. I was like, man, like, I wish I'd be a better student so I can feel better about myself when I was placed in such a situation. But you live and you learn.
Well, I mean, if I know our audience right now must be thinking, listening to you. I mean, your English is superb right now. All these years later, right? I'm sure you're inspiring people. Our audience of, from across the alliance, right? Because look where you are. You are a successful airman in the U.S. Air Force. That is amazing. It really is, and it makes you feel better. So, and if it makes you feel better, like I have a British colleague, love her to death. She's great. She's awesome to work with, but she's from North Wales. Sometimes I have more trouble understanding her than my French colleague in English. So, maybe it's my American, dog.
When you mentioned one,
Yeah.
I was there with Aussies.
Oh, awesome.
And I'm like, do you speak English? I was like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
That's what I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
I
know what you mean.
It's funny you bring that up. Our first guest ever on the Allied Airpower podcast was an Aussie, and I think it's soothing to the ears just to hear him talk, right? But I could see sometimes, random words of like, what is, but okay, so let's talk about from that journey, learning English, ESL, to gaining American citizenship. How long till when you decided I want to be an American citizen, and then that moment when you signed the paper, you did the pledge and everything, what did that mean to you?
So my whole journey to becoming a citizen really sucked. I don't want to go into details, but my marriage wasn't really the best. It was, I'll say it out loud. I was a victim of domestic violence. I was, again, I was this immigrant who didn't really know the laws. I didn't know the avenues I can take to protect myself. So, I was being taken advantage of. I fully, I can admit it. And this also served me as a leader, as a senior NCO to actually help my airmen because I can, use my story to kind of open up to them. So yes, that helped me. So my path to citizenship wasn't really the easiest. But I wasn't really with her as I was being, there was restraining orders and whatnot from her. So I wasn't really with her and I had to do everything by myself with those restraining orders. So it was kind of hard to do everything by myself and go to get my citizenship as a victim of domestic violence and such. So doing that, it was difficult. But again, I tried to maintain my residency, my work. I was working, and I have to say that obviously I did not do it by myself. I had friends, colleagues, I had people in my life who did help me a lot. One of them was, I'll say his name because he deserved it. His name is Joel Gooderly. He was working in the same company. I was, the IT guy, held this brand or whatever. He's like, hey, man, I know you want to be a soldier. Like we've talked. It's like, I'm in the Air Force, I'm a reservist. I serve at Travis. Like, you should think about it. I have a great friend. She's a recruiter. I'm like, okay. So I was thinking about it and I was like, man, I should look into it. So I was looking into it. And I wanted to be part of the Air Force. And my recruiter is like, hey, you cannot join without a citizenship. Unfortunately, she didn't know that I need a green card, but so it's okay though. So I was trying to get my citizenship and my papers in order, make sure everything aligns, So I was working with a organization who was helping foreigners or green card holders with that, right? So she's helping me, and I'm going through the whole process. And essentially, back in 2011 December, I think it was December 16th, I told you, that's when I finally made it to the finish line, and I was able to, get my citizenship. And because I was rushing so quickly to ship out and be in the Air Force, I did not see a judge. Otherwise, I would change my name from Jan to Honza, actually. But I saw a director of the immigration services back in San Jose, and she was the one basically, administered everything, and I swore in front of her. And then later on, 3 days later, I joined. So yeah.
Wow.
But then, yeah, my path was it was
Yeah.
happy.
Well, it shows, you can't have grit without adversity because then it's not grit, right? That's part of life, I suppose. It's just a matter of going through it. That's amazing. And so talk a little bit. So Honza,
Right.
where does that come from?
So everybody asked me the question. The way I explained it, right? I would go back to Bohemian Austria, right? When it was Johann, Hansa, Jan, Hansa. Yeah. I compared
Yeah.
changed throughout the time, right?
Yeah.
Hansa is basically deviation from, I think, Johann.
Right.
And then Jan is also one. Again, it's just like, what is it? William and Ball? Same thing, the same thing. So this is what I keep telling everybody. I just don't like Jan because people keep calling me Jan. And anytime they use like on the phone, hey, Jan, send me an email. I'm looking for her. I was like, no, I'm not Jan. You're looking for we is gone. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, yeah. And till this day, I keep getting ma'am or I keep getting
On the emails, yeah.
Miss Cafourek. I was like, no, I'm like, no. So yes, I want to change it to Honza so they know.
Yeah.
Masculine is man, right? But
Yeah.
later.
No, that's fair. Oh, that's interesting. No, I would want to do the same thing. But opposite of that, my wife was adamant in keeping her Czech last name. So even though we're married, I guess this new age, marriage, right? Malatek. That's her name because she's proud of her Czech heritage. Opposite, as she should, and I can see why. It makes amazing people, right?
My spouse, she actually gave her a Hispanic last name too. So. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. Hey, well, I think in Hispanic cultures too,
Hispanic.
Yeah.
My name, so bit. So why not?
Yeah. Well, let's continue your journey, right? So you gain your American citizenship. You're an airman in the U.S. Air Force. So how did you decide to get into what you're doing now?
So again, I will have to say I was also looking to Marines because Marines, they have MOS Czech linguist. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it. But unfortunately, the recruiter I met with he gave me a bad vibe. So I was like, I don't want Marines. And then next door was also an Air Force recruiter. And as I mentioned before, I was talking to this previous Air Force recruiter. So I talked to 2 Air Force recruiters and they're like, yeah, come on, you just try. I talked to his second Air Force recruiter. He was active duty. The one before was reserve. So we kind of discussed things and I've decided to go for reserves because I wanted to be closer to my son, especially, being separated. So, then I went back and talked to the Air Force Reserve recruiter. Mind you, again, I was just starting. My English wasn't the best. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. My ASVA wasn't the best, right? So I took my ASVA. I scored just enough to be a logistician.
And for our audience, can you kind of just describe what the ASVAT is?
So ASVAT is the Armed Forces what is it? Armed Forces Service Vocation?
Yeah,
something.
It's a text,
right? So basically, it's a test you need to take before joining the U.S. military. And then, over there, you do your English, math, you do your physics, electronics, biology, whatever is there. So you take that and based on your score, you get overall score and then you get score for each subject or each section of the test. And then based on that, the Air Force will offer you a job you want to do or you qualify for. And then based on that, you can actually pick what you want. So in my case, it was security forces. It was pest control, HVAC, logistician supply. Right? I was like, okay, so again, I've picked supply. And then I stayed there forever now. 14 years.
Yeah, but from what we've talked about offline, you're still interested. You still want to be a cop someday, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Still chasing the dream.
That's on my radar. That's on my radar. Gonna be civilian cop one way or another.
Yeah,
I'm not giving up on this one. That I'm going to finish. After all, I finished my my bachelor's in criminal justice. So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, thank you this has been an amazing story, and I think people should hear, stories about adversity and grit and how to get through it. And I guess my last question, right, for you for the podcast is, all these years later, you go back to the Czech Republic. You see your family. Your family's still there, right? Yeah. How is that like? How's that dynamic? Do they look at you like, oh, it's the American, or how does that go?
So I would say, because I've been living in the state for more than 20 years now. 20 years. My mentality has changed. I am more Americanized than I'm Czech. And I have my Czech roots, but certain things I don't understand why they do it the way they do it. And then again, I'm more American than Czech. So my family knows that. They kind of accept it. Friends, I lost friends along the way because we don't see eye to eye no more. I mean, like, what am I going to talk to somebody who doesn't have the same or similar mentality as me? And again, I was a child when I left. So my perspective has changed a lot. Especially, I had to put a lot of effort into my life to be where I'm at right now, right? So it was adversity, as you mentioned. Then it was many struggles along the way, deployment, during the deployment, you know what happens during deployment. We're dealing with ISIS, right? So you see things and it changes you. And I feel more comfortable now talking to Americans or people who are more aligned with my views. And in Czech, I see that occasionally. Yes, I do see that, but people look at me as American. Yeah, I know that because they're like, what's wrong with you? It was like nothing.
You're a proud American.
Yeah,
You're proud
American.
to serve. Yeah.
Like the American flag means more to me than
what was before. Yeah.
Czech one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unfortunate. I mean, again, I'm a citizen. I have my life. I have my wife. I mean, I'm married. I might have an accent, but I see myself as an American.
Yeah.
Plus, I served here, so.
Well, it's evident because you were referenced to me by my American, colleagues across the streets. Like, you got to talk to Honza. Got to talk to Honza. He's a good dude. And you are, as one immigrant to another immigrant, we made it, right? To America. We're proud of it.
We made it to headquarters. So
there we are. And now, I did have one last question. Probably the most important question of this whole interview. What is your favorite beer?
My favorite beer, everybody was making fun of me, but every time I go back home to my city where, we live, they have Starbrno. It's a brewing company in Brno, and everybody keeps talking so much smack about it from Czechom. Why?
Why?
He's like, he stole that water, this and that. I was like, no, I actually like it. I like Starbrno. Starbrno is my favorite beer, and I love it.
Oh, wow.
Every time I go there, my mom is like, how's your beer? And I know he.
Had to get it in the black market here. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious because, in the world, I get in fights. Czech beer. My wife, when she went to Czech Republic, brought me beer. And it's like the heavens parted when I drank it. I was like, wow, I didn't know Czech beer. But I didn't even realize there was divisions within Czech beers, right? Well, Honza, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for telling the story. You'll be in the Czech Republic, hopefully in the coming weeks, the coming months for NATO days in Ostrava, and representing the United States. And I couldn't think of a better person, and I do tend to hyperbolize, but I truly mean it. I think a person to represent the United States there in Ostrava. That wraps up this flight of the Allied Airpower podcast, where news-driven updates meet the authentic voices behind the mission to defend every inch of NATO territory. Today's episode was a special one that we hope to do more of, telling the stories of the people who make Allied Airpower happen. Today we told the story of Honza, a proud U.S. Air Force airman. It's a story with lessons we can all learn from. For my part, as an immigrant as well, who had to learn English as a 4-year-old, I've come to immensely respect the non-native English speakers here at Allied Air Command. This is for you and for my mom, because I know how smart you are, and I don't need to listen to you in your native Spanish to know it. For Honza, what is unique about his journey is finding himself all these years later representing the U.S. at NATO days in Ostrava, Czech Republic. He'll be engaging with the local community there in Czechia, and we wish him the best serving as an ambassador to the NATO publics we are committed to defend. Now, if you found today some value in the episode, share the show and leave us a rating so others can navigate air, space, and cyberspace with us. Explore deeper coverage anytime at ac.nato.int and send us your questions or topics you'd like us to tackle. Until our next sortie, stand ready in the air, secure in cyberspace, and steady on the path to the stars.